Professor Hangwell, would you like to elaborate on now red flag signs in depression? If a person has been having these symptoms, when should a person actually go and meet a mental health professional?
Yes, I suppose by red flag you mean signs that the person might commit suicide, is it? Or
Yes.
right, yes. Of course, I mean, I remember that suicide is not the greatest danger in depression because, I mean, it's only a small percentage that actually commit suicide in depressive disorder. The greater harm is, of course, in the impairment of your normal functioning, which leads to so many other issues, relationships with the family members. So these are also, in a way, red flag signs. So basically, if you think you have a depressive disorder, you must get help. I think that's the bottom line, even though you may not have ideas of self-harm or suicide. However, if we're talking of ideas of self-harm and suicide, if there are persistent signs of thinking that it's better off dead, or in a more advanced situation, you think that you might actually facilitate that death by doing something to yourself. If you're having those thoughts very frequently, then it's a danger sign. Of course, having remember that all human beings at some point or the other, like your mood, do have thoughts of, it's better if I'm dead. But these are passing thoughts and they are not actually serious. So don't worry if you have an occasional thought that it would be nice to, not be in this world. That's not a sign of danger. However, if there are persistent thoughts, day in and day out and lasting more than again 2 weeks, that's a very dangerous sign.
Are there different types of depression?
Yes, depending on the symptoms, we kind of identify. Firstly, of course, we can grade the depression into levels of severity. So, people who have only the cognitive signs or the without the somatic signs, we call it a mild depression. And people with some somatic symptoms but no great impairment of their day-to-day function would have a moderate depression. And people whose functioning is seriously impaired and who have serious suicidal ideas or what we call psychotic symptoms, which I will explain later, are graded as severe depression. However, having said that, there are other types of depression. So traditionally, the older psychiatrists used to call severe depression melancholia. So melancholia is a very severe kind of depression where you are really seriously depressed. And then, of course, there are other types that have been identified, like, for example, depression that can be associated with a pregnancy. Most often after delivery, not during the pregnancy itself. So the danger period is around 6 weeks after pregnancy. Of course, immediately after delivery. Of course, immediately after delivery, for the first few weeks, you can get a change of mood, which is not a depression, but it's called postpartum blues. These are not very dangerous. These are actually, they are in about half the mothers. So nothing to worry about. However, depression comes a bit later, around roughly 6 weeks. And that's a very important depression to identify and treat quickly, because that will affect not only the mother, but will affect the baby as well. And there are other depressions that are seen in temperate countries where the seasons are very clear, like winter and summer. And there we have a type of depression called seasonal affective disorder, SAD for short, where people get depression in the winter and they become better in summer. Of course, all of us have our moods lifting when it's bright and sunny, and we feel a bit gloomy when the weather is not very good. And that's a normal effect on human beings. However, this is a very significant depression. So that occurs, a severe depression, that occurs only mainly in winter. And that needs to be identified as well. And of course, there's another depression that is associated with what we call bipolar disorder, where we will talk about that later, where your mood swings from one end to the other, and actually you become quite high and happy at some stage. And that's another different condition. But there also you get very severe depressions. And of course, the older people are more likely to get depressed because of other physical illness and losses. And there you get a lot of agitation. They get very anxious and agitated, and we call it agitated depression. And of course, you have to remember that anxiety, not only depression, is a strong association of depression. So severe anxiety associated with depression is another type. And actually, if this anxiety is severe, that can actually be quite dangerous, and that can lead people to actually commit suicide because they cannot tolerate the anxiety. And that's a bit different to committing suicide because they feel hopeless and helpless. Right. So these are the kinds of depression or types you can get.